Hello, everyone. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to let you know that our own event, Candid Commerce, is coming to London on February 12th. This is the second time that we do an own event. We did the first one in Amsterdam in September. And this event, the idea is that it brings the spirit and tone of the show to real life. There'll be 4 panels about marketing, e-commerce, retail media, and leadership with senior executives from the likes of L'Oreal, Mars, Lidl, Unilever, Ocado, General Mills, and more. So if you're a director or above, FMCG or retail executive, because this event is exclusively for this crowd and you'd like to join in, please follow the link below to RSVP. There's not many places available, so I can't guarantee that you'll get in, but we look forward to seeing you there. And if you can't come, do stay tuned on our LinkedIn page, or you can contact us directly for more events that will come up very, very soon. And now, here's today's episode.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm Daniel Torres. If this is the first time you tune in, you'll want to know that this is the show that gives visibility to the top voices in consumer goods in retail in Europe and beyond. And we've been doing that for 5 years. Well, kind of 5 years, started late 2020. And over that period of time, we've done over 200 episodes. So it's always a good idea to go into our website or your favorite podcast platform to entertain yourself and be educated by some of the industry's top leaders. And remember, we are actually part of a family of podcasts. We have a sister podcast at the other side of the Atlantic, the CPG Guys with Peter and Shri. So do tune into their show to learn about what's happening at the other side of the Atlantic. And yes, indeed, I'm not on my own here. I'm very lucky to have 2 amazing co-hosts that put up with me week in, week out. So today, the saint that's accompanying me is no other than Christina Nicolau. Hey, Christina, how are you doing?
Hi, Daniel. It's an absolute pleasure putting up with you.
Exactly. There's more boring people to put up with. Let's put it that way.
You're definitely an interesting person. Yes, you can testify to that.
Not a dull moment. And for those who've met me in person, you'll probably know that, especially if you've had a couple of drinks with me. Anyway, so today we'll speak with one of the industry's most respected institutions. It's no other than the GS1, who are doing a lot of innovation in the industry. And today we'll speak about a lot around barcodes, which is something that sometimes is overseen, but there's much more that meets the eye. And we're accompanied by no other than Kerry Morrison, who's the head of retail. Hey, Kerry.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Christina. Great to speak to you all today. And thank you very much for having me.
It's our pleasure. It's a pleasure. We were chatting before that you and Christina actually briefly even crossed paths at the IGO. So
I head up the retail team at GS1 UK. As you said, Daniel, the company that provides industry with the barcodes they need to trade. And absolutely, much more that meets the eye, and a lot of interesting sort of details behind that. An exciting new innovation in that space as well, which I'll touch on in a second. So my background has always been in FMCG. I started my journey in customer and store operations and co-op, and I've worked with major producers and manufacturers such as Diageo, KP Snacks, and United Biscuits. In terms of roles, I've spent a lot of time working in commercial, digital, and e-commerce strategy. I've also worked in global travel and in a number of channels, so business to consumer, business to business, direct to consumer, across borders and across channels. And I've also done a few roles in category management and industry consultancy, such as within the fresh and confectionery categories. So Daniel, if it's tasty, I've worked on it. I now head up the retail and marketplaces team at GS1 UK.
You've done a lot of things clearly across the different parts of the industry. And now you're at GS1, but tell us a little bit about it more. Like, what is GS1 UK? What do you guys do?
So GS1 UK, we are a neutral, not-for-profit membership organisation And ultimately, we provide the retail industry with the barcodes they need to sell their products worldwide. So these barcodes, in actual fact, are responsible for driving £1.2 trillion worth of money through the UK economy on an annual basis. And within the UK, we've got 60,000 members alone. And this includes your top retailers, so your Tesco's, your Sainsbury's, your ASDA's of this world, alongside your global brands, so Unilever, Diageo, Mondelez, all the way down to your kitchen counter startups and people that decided to start their own business, for example, during the recent pandemic. And it includes absolutely everyone in between. So our members, they're not just FMCG. Think apparel, DIY, electronics, and luxury goods. And as I was saying to Daniel, we operate as part of a global federation. So there's 118 different GS1 companies around the world. But ultimately, we do something very similar. We were created for industry and by industry. And we bring our members together to solve problems in a neutral and collaborative and non-competitive space. Again, I go back to the barcode, probably the most common example of what we do within industry. But this ultimately allows businesses to be able to trade worldwide and continue to sell their products at scale and at pace.
Yeah, so you actually cover the same industries that we cover, because we're called the FMCG guys, but we've actually had a lot of guests from apparel, consumer electronics, anything that's like kind of, that it's an object that you can shop, basically.
Has a barcode on.
Yeah, exactly. So a car doesn't have a barcode on, right? So we don't cover that. But yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly the definition, Christina. Like, that's how maybe we should rename ourselves to like the barcode guys. Anyway, so what would you say like the role, if you had to define it like in one sentence? Maybe that's impossible, I'm not sure. Of GS1 in the industry, like in the FMCG industry, or what would it be?
So our one role is to help industry to succeed and to grow. That's one role. That's our duty to our members, to understand their needs and to ensure that we're enabling their success in everything we do.
Okay, this is very clear and very concise, but I'm wondering, like, you guys do barcodes. Help our listeners as well understand. Why do we care? Why are barcodes important?
Fantastic question. So ultimately, barcodes drive revenue. They allow industry to identify the products that they can sell across retailers, geographies, and channels. So a key part of that is selling. Barcodes go beep at the till. That's where our consumers, that's where we're more familiar with them. And they look up a price and they allow that product to transact. Now, anyone that's worked in the industry for, more than 4 decades remembers the time when barcodes didn't exist and that beep didn't go beep at the checkout. And it was a very manual and a very slow and a very uncertain process because you didn't always get the right price. So ultimately, allowing products to sell really quickly through multiple channels. And that brings us to online. So we know that a lot of products are sold online these days, and through marketplaces, some products, they don't necessarily touch the retailer, they move through a marketplace. So to be successful, to get products listed on Amazon, industry requires barcodes to make that happen so that our marketplaces can know for sure exactly what is going through and on to customers. So there's a huge consumer element there. Identification, I've touched on, but ultimately, businesses need to know what products are in their supply chains and how that stock is moving through, particularly when you are dealing with complex supply chains, as we are within the retail space. So we see omnichannel, we see global supply chains, and we see lots of stock being sold on a day-to-day. So being able to understand where that stock is and efficiently manage it and really saving costs when that stock is moving out the door to consumers. So we talked about revenue, we talked about cost. The next piece is the identification and the strategy side. So behind every barcode or under every barcode is a number, and that is the number that identifies that product. And that is actually the prerequisite of the big data and product level analytics that we see all companies investing in massively. So think dunnhumby, where I used to work, your Nielsen's, your Kantars. Product identification actually sits as a core component of product, marketing, consumer strategy. And that all wouldn't be possible today without the GS1 identifier.
I'm wondering, Kerry, we've been having a lot of conversations about the digital and retail media and so on, and we always discuss a lot about the unique identifier of the software that we want to have. We don't really consider the other part, which is how do you have this unique identifier of the product? And I guess it's probably because this has practically been solved with the barcodes. And as you said, the way that the industry has evolved over the 4 past decades.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we come on to the next generation of barcode and what's coming next. So you're absolutely right, Christine. There is so much that this solves. And what we're doing at the moment and what we continue to do is understanding our members' priorities and big bets in the changing dynamic of retail. So we know that consumer demands are at the heart of business strategies. We've seen, certainly within the last decade, that real consumer-first, data-driven focus from businesses. We know that sustainability is huge, and that's driven by regulation for sure, but also the need for real behavioural change with consumers. And we've seen, certainly within sort of my last couple of roles leading up to this, digitization being absolutely key and crucial in tomorrow and today's shopper experience. So merging the digital with the physical. We know our barcode's been around for the last 50 years. It's formed the backbone of global trade and it's enabled a lot. But the next generation of barcode that we are working with industry to transition to will continue to respond to these businesses' needs of today and continue to drive more revenue for businesses and help everyone's business grow.
So is the new barcode like a QR code?
I love it, Dan. You've come to exactly what I was going to say next. It is. So the barcode, it's changing shape. Absolutely. We've got the linear barcode at the moment. So those black and white lines. What we're transitioning to is QR codes powered by GS1. So ultimately, this is the combination of 2 of the greatest inventions of all times, the internet and the barcode. And we're putting those together. So the next generation of barcode will continue to do everything the current barcode does. It goes beep at the checkout. We know that. We've seen that. But it will also connect consumers to a digital version of that product through a simple smartphone scan. And we see this as being absolutely massive for how businesses can talk directly to their consumers, drive revenue, enrich consumer engagement, and evolve digital strategy.
So what do we expect in terms of the actual packaging? We go on in front of the shelf, we will pick up the product. We will no longer be seeing the barcode as we know it there, and we'll only be seeing the QR code.
So eventually, yes, that's absolutely right. We are transitioning globally, and some countries are further down the path on this. If I look at what's going on in some areas of Brazil and some areas of Australia, absolutely, that barcode has changed. It is a QR code on pack. If I look at some of our smaller members that are launching products taking a digital-first strategy through e-commerce as opposed to in-store, we are seeing businesses go straight for QR codes powered by GS1. We imagine that there will be, for the majority of big businesses, a transition phase where both barcodes will exist depending on supply chains. Because we know that some companies will be selling products potentially outside of the UK, and those will be read at checkouts that, potentially haven't migrated over. But what we know from our work within the UK is that most checkouts in top grocers are able to read both and are currently reading both at point of sale. So this has got huge implications for any own label providers that can, quite likely move forward faster with more of their product range at the moment on this. But we're seeing it have huge benefits for branded manufacturers as well, who want to get ahead of the game and make this transition.
How do you actually come to an agreement? Because this still requires like a lot of consensus, no? From the brands, from the retailers, like to actually, how does the GS1 actually rally all these parts?
It's a great question, Daniel, and one that we're doing globally and in country. So those are two parts of it. Globally as a GS1 federation, and in country as GS1 UK, GS1 Australia, GS1 Brazil, GS1 China, and so on. We're using our neutral, not-for-profit, non-competitive membership presence to bring industry together and have discussions around, well, practically, what does this mean? What does this mean for packaging? What does this mean for printing? We have a wide network of partners, all the way from your printing, all the way down to your digital and your data and your consumer interface, who are working with us and our members in this space. And we are learning from our successes as well. So those who have already started moving forward on this, what they found are the benefits and what they're seeing from a connected consumer space, but also from a cost reduction space, also from a making product recall easier space.
Okay, so what is actually that they have found that is helping the brand side? Like, what kind of information are they able to put into the QR code that we're not able to do that before?
So there's a lot of possibilities, and that is what is so exciting. So how this will enable FMCG brands to succeed? Firstly, being able to reach consumers. So like I said, the next generation of Barcode will essentially turn every product into its own media channel, where any consumer with any smartphone will be able to scan that and get instant access to key information that is unique to that product. So imagine a world where you can use your highest selling products to talk to consumers about rest of range, including things like promotion and discount. Imagine being able to direct your customers into seasonal variants of a product. Imagine being able to comply with legislative requirements around information disclosure of that particular product in not just the UK, but in multiple trading territories. And we see this as being one of the key challenges that industry are facing. And imagine being able to provide always-on consumer engagement without the cost of media placement through your products and being able to bring your brand story to life. So we see this as being hugely beneficial in terms of being able to reuse the same retail media resources that brands and manufacturers already have. We see this as being huge in tackling sustainability, both in informing customers, the story of a product, helping them make sustainable choices, being able to use the data that they're sitting on and that they're needing to use to disclose information to legislators, but also allowing consumers to have access to that data so they can make informed choices, and also helping consumers use the product and dispose of the product in a sustainable way. So a big topic for us is sustainability within GS1 UK. And we know that there are challenges around getting consumers to do the right thing, all the way down to, use of product and recycling and at-home sorting. And we know this is a huge opportunity for brands to start resolving some of that behavioural change with consumers. We also know digitization is key. So 87% of consumers are using smartphones to research products pre and post purchase. And we know that over half of sales have a digital touch point. So this is something consumers are asking for. And being able to provide those digital touch points through a barcode and product packaging to the masses, we think is a fantastic opportunity for all brands looking to continue to sell, continue to grow, and continue to invest in their consumer and retail media strategies.
I have a question, maybe a silly question, but considering that barcodes are already scannable, why can't they provide all this information that QR codes do?
I love it. I love it, Daniel. Great question. So the current barcode's got a few limitations. At the moment, it's only that identifier that is encoded within the stripes on pack.
Okay.
QR is able to encode more information for a start. So we talk about things like batch and lot to help recall, sell by date to help inventory management, country of origin to help inventory management according to legislation. So already you're able to encode more data in there from a supply chain perspective. Now, the next piece is the consumer piece. Current barcodes in their current format will never be able to talk to consumers. The QR, GS1 powered QR will, because QRs can be read by any smartphone. And it's up to the brands to choose how they want to set up their media, their digital touch points, etc., to connect to consumers directly through their QR codes on pack. And we know some brands already use QR codes on pack. We see a lot of instances where it's one QR code for one campaign, which means that, once that campaign's done, there's no longer a need for that QR. It doesn't send consumers anywhere. This is one QR code that does everything. It goes beep at the checkout. Mm-hmm. It does what it needs to do within the supply chain space and more than it's ever done, because you can encode more information in that outside of just the identifier. And it also connects to consumers with information digitally that's unique to that product, its history, its usage, its recyclability, and so on, which we know is crucial for upcoming legislative requirements as well.
Yes, and apart from the legislative requirements, I guess like me as a consumer, I know that I can find all the information I want and kind of like answer the questions I have about the product right there on the shelf. And in a way that I ensure that whatever I scan, it does not have the risk of being outdated and kind of like create this frustration to me in a way.
Exactly, Christina. And that's a key point that we're seeing, particularly when it comes to updating product information. Now, we know that, this is done when it needs to be done in the back end systems when products change. But we're having conversations with companies that are looking to expand their trading territories. And one big challenge is, well, if I want to sell it in that country, I need to have this information on it, including language, for example.
Yes.
The fact that brands can now do this digitally makes it a lot faster and a lot more seamless to sell in more territories. So we're seeing some really big wins within some of our smaller members, which means that they continue to offer the information needed digitally without necessarily having to create more variants of the same product to sell in more markets.
Yeah.
Which is a huge implication for cost and for sustainability factors.
Yeah, because for example, imported goods, like typical Asian imported goods that you buy in like Asian stores, all have like stickers on them.
Yes,
exactly.
So with the like when they're like here in Spanish or whatever. So of course with the QR code you can bridge that.
And I guess we should be expecting to see like an evolution of packaging, because it's going to free up so much space if you don't have the need to include like 7 different languages at the back of a very tiny bottle.
Exactly. And accessibility as well. So we know that 15% of UK consumers can't actually read back of pack. And you'll laugh that the common workaround for this is you take a photo and then you zoom in on your camera. So imagine a world where people could access the information they need a lot easier in the language, in the font size that will enable them to access that information and have that up to date as well. And I think, because the flip side is for marketeers, this will free up more space as well. So not having to contain every single message on pack. It means you can have, the key messages that need to be there on pack from a legislative perspective, but also from a marketing perspective.
And trying to expand even this thinking more when it comes to accessibility. Hearing you speak, Kerry, I guess even for people who are not able to read, then, because through your phone, you can actually listen with the assistant to the text that's provided. It feels like this is a step in the right direction to make the shopping experience a little bit more accessible to people.
Certainly. And that's certainly how we see it from a consumer perspective. And Christina, you mentioned the being able to access the information you need right there and then. So we're seeing things like enhanced nutritionals being a really big possibility. That information around what vitamins and minerals a product has aren't always necessarily available. And then when you think about more complex products, usage as well is a key area. So we spoke to one detergent manufacturer that said, our biggest impact from a carbon perspective sits outside our supply chain. It's whether a consumer will wash their clothes at 60 or at 20. And the product we've got allows them to wash it at 20. So being able to call out really clear instructions and safety instructions on how products can be used in the home in the best way. We've got another retailer that is focusing on waste and on making sure that, products are consumed and trying to fight the statistic that we all know around the proportion of household food waste from fresh food that goes straight into the bin. So their message to consumers is around how to make sure that consumers are storing the product in a way that makes it last longer and using all of the product that will enable them to save on costs, save on waste, and increase the health benefits.
And we're talking about like consumers, the brands. So I think that now, if it wasn't obvious enough, I think that we've got a very good understanding of what will it mean and the clear benefits of having QR codes. What about retailers? Do they really care? Because anyway, the products are going through their stores anyhow.
Great question, Daniel. So what do the retailers say? And we have spoken to a lot of retailers on this, from, FMCG to apparel to health and beauty. So firstly, this project has been going on worldwide for a number of years now within the back end space, so the retail and the tech space. And we know that most checkouts, certainly in the UK, at major retailers will accept QR code. And it can go beep at the checkout ultimately, which is very good because that's what it needs to do. And we know that a lot of countries have been doing this for many years now. So Australia, Japan and Brazil have regularly been scanning QR codes powered by GS1 for at least 4 years. We know that one big focus for retailers is helping prevent the wrong stock from going to consumers. So by this, I mean out-of-date stock. Last Christmas and the Christmas before, a lot of retailers received quite hefty fines because out-of-date stock made its way into customers' shopping baskets and out the door with customers. The beautiful thing about the next generation of barcodes is you can encode the expiry date and you can prevent out-of-date stock from going out of the door to customers. And this saves the retailers millions of pounds of fines because the fines are millions of pounds, sometimes tens of millions of pounds. So this is very important for retailers, certainly within the fresh space. We also know that, outside of the fresh space, whether it is FMCG, whether it's toys, whether it's health and beauty, there are products that are from time to time recalled. This, in terms of retail operations, is huge because you need to get all the stock off the shelf. You then need to wait for about 6 to 8 weeks to make sure none of the recalled stock re-enters that store from any source. Again, the beauty of encoding things like batch and lot numbers into next generation of barcodes, it means this will be stopped at checkout. And it takes a lot of the time management and the efficiency management out of the equation in terms of what stock is coming into the store and what stock is not being allowed to ever go out. Again, this has got huge financial benefits to the retailers. And from speaking to the retailers, we know that as long as brands are using this to continue to drive footfall into retailers, continue to build on their brand marketing, and continue to give customers a reason to buy this products, retailers are delighted by that because this ultimately it translates into more sales through more brand marketing and through cost-effective brand marketing. Another conversation we've had is around, it takes the pressure of point of sale, particularly around paper-heavy point of sale, and that's really good from a sustainability angle and a waste angle as well.
And you already mentioned, Kerry, a few markets where you've seen this happening. So there are people out there, companies doing it already. They're changing to QR codes.
Absolutely. So we've had Woolworths within Australia who've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now. And they found around a 40% saving in waste and efficiency from the work that they've done. What that looks like is they've got a view as a retailer of what products they have, what shelf life, and they can make informed choices about how they move that stock through their supply chains and how they deal with that stock in store. And they also prevent sales of out-of-date stock as well. So there's that fine and cost avoidance there. We've also got one UK retailer has, they're rolling this out to 500 products within their range over the next year. And I think it's already on something like over 50 products. For them, data collection is very interesting. They're finding that customers who are scanning are dwelling for around 30 seconds on each landing page that they fall on. They're seeing that customers are interested in recycling, in sorting, and in sustainability initiatives for sure. And they're interested in how the data they can collect from what customers are clicking on and looking at shapes their overall strategy. We know that within Brazil, where there are much stricter fines around out-of-date products going through checkouts, prison sentences being one of them, but they found since they started off using GS1 powered by QR powered by GS1, since they started off using this, they have now moved from the cost prevention to the engagement. So talking to customers about recipes, generating loyalty, launching loyalty campaigns on the back of this. So everyone that we're seeing do this is definitely seeing benefits around cost reduction, but also seeing huge benefits in terms of consumer engagement and brand marketing and reach to consumers.
What type of time horizons are we thinking of for this? Because I was speaking to a company that was basing their value. I guess it's easy to pivot, but it's like a B2B company basing their value prop on scanning barcodes, not QR codes. So are we talking about something of like the 2030s, or is that something more immediate where everything will have a QR code? Let's talk about Europe.
We're talking of Horizon 2027. So by 2027, we expect the majority of till scanners to accept QR codes. And anyone that doesn't will be in the minority. We see, like I said, most UK and European retailers have already done this. And we're working with the biggest global scanners in the world. And Daniel, the reason this is, 2027 and not 2037 is because the same companies that provide the scanners to retail are providing the scanners to healthcare. And healthcare have been scanning 2-dimensional barcodes for the better part of the last decade and a half. So that innovation has already been delivered to industry. The next step for us is working with industry to land this at scale, because when this worked best is when lots of people are doing it and lots of consumers have got, a credible experience of scanning a QR code and getting something quite similar. So we have been asked by industry to really lead the charge on this and to bring industry with us. And we see that those that are starting now are already seeing the benefits from a cost reduction and from a revenue driving perspective, as well as being able to, do the necessities and do the right in the sustainability space. So we're really excited about our role in leading and shaping this with industry within the UK and beyond.
And Kerry, we have a lot of people listening to our podcast who work either for retailers or for brands. So I guess the natural question after, creating all this excitement is now, what do I do? Where do I start?
Where do we start? Fantastic question. So we will continue to work with industry. We ask industry to please approach us. We are, if they haven't already, we're launching a series of transition workshops and webinars within January. We have a contact strategy for, anyone that comes into us that wants to talk to us about it. Please do get in touch. and we can lead you, whether it's you as an individual or you as part of your team or you within your company through this. And we work with many different stakeholders across many different businesses. So we're used to working with, your legal department, your marketing department, your supply, your sustainability and your commercial, and navigating all those touch points with you. We really welcome brands that want to do this sooner rather than later. And we think a great place to start for those brands would be on anything Christmas, anything seasonal, anything limited edition, and any new product innovation. We think this will be the easiest starting point for a lot of industry listening, a lot of industry thinking about what they can do to win next year within Christmas, within seasonal. And we have a process which we can take industry through, all the way from what needs to be true on pack, what needs to be true behind the scenes, what needs to be true from a sort of digital consumer touchpoint perspective. But if I give you the example of, January 2025, business thinking about, launching, five seasonal products for Christmas, there's an element of that that's got to be around new packaging. There's an element of that that's got to be around, scaling up marketing and consumer plans to launch that innovation. There will be media spend allocated to those products that can be capitalized on. There will be probably an opportunity for a bit of test and learn. I know, I did 5 years of seasonal before I did digital. So I know what that looks like. And there will be an element of cross-departmental working as well to get these products from concept through the factories into the hands of the buyers and then on shelf. So it's how businesses can implement QR within that space, powered by GS1, and how they can join the dots and use things like, the media that they've got, the social they've got, and really bring that to light through QR to consumers. And I think that would be a fantastic place to test and learn. So please do get in contact. I'd love to talk to, brands and retailers about this in more detail. I'd love to, engage them with the 12 steps we've got in terms of getting this out the door. And I'd love to talk about, the use cases that are, specific to whatever category they're working on or whatever product they've got. We can then, partner that with what we're seeing within similar categories and products in the market, bring that to life for both them and their businesses, and help them kickstart this journey.
If it has a barcode on, they'll be listening to this, so it's relevant. And we'll be adding your LinkedIn profile to the show notes, so anyone that likes can get in touch with you. And the little bird has told me you'll also be in person on the ground at our London event, Candid Commerce, on February 12th. So for anyone that's also at the event, they'll be able to engage with you directly there.
I love it. Very excited to kickstart 2025 with yourselves, Daniel.
Yeah, what a way to kick it off, eh? It will be difficult to keep that excitement for the rest of the year, but we'll do our best to support. So, Kerry, you've had a very interesting career across, FMCG, agency, now being in an industry body. With everything that you've done and everything that I'm sure you've learned, if you had to go back to yourself as you were starting to work, what would be that one piece of advice you would give yourself?
So, I find this quite an easy question. So the one piece of advice I'd give myself going back is say no to what you know you should be saying no to. So I was always very good at asking questions, at, finding out. But I felt, and, we've probably all felt, when you're quite junior in your career, it can be difficult sometimes to translate the understanding that you've got and your gut feeling into some really clear action that is sometimes saying, let's take a different approach to that, or let's not do that. And I think when the power of doing that is it enables us to shut down projects and programs of work that are not adding value and not moving forward and not future thinking. And it allows us to reallocate that time into the right projects that are in line with our company values and our consumers and what's the right thing to do. So it would be that. It would be say no to the things that you shouldn't be doing and focus on the things that we should be doing to deliver real value and real growth and real sort of consumer experience and whatever that programme of work is.
This was Kerry Morrison from GS1. Christina, what are your key takeaways from the new generation of barcodes?
First of all, who could have thought that barcodes as a topic can be so exciting?
Yeah, I know.
I'm very engaged with the conversation.
Yeah, it has a lot of at the end of the day, it's, just the fact that this podcast, is around companies that sell products with barcodes. That was already an eye opener for me.
Yeah, that was an aha moment, right? So in the barcode guides of this episode, I think that, first of all, it's incredible to think that 40 years ago, barcodes didn't exist. Now we take it like as a given that, of course, you can scan a product and, it will just go through the cashier and all. But it does feel like a bit dated when you think about it, because it only had like the UPC, kind of like the actual serial number of the product. And you see already companies that are trying to put more information and connect their products to the digital sphere. So it feels only natural that we should have some kind of transition to, as Kerry called it, a new generation of barcodes.
Yeah, it's interesting because, there's all this consequences around contact with the consumer, sustainability, also keeping track internally, supply chains. I actually came just now from recording an episode on supply chains. So it's interesting, all the ramifications that it has.
Oh, absolutely it does. But also for the retailers part, that was quite eye-opening. I didn't realize how harsh are laws in Brazil when it comes to doing the first in, first out thing and making sure that, out-of-date stock doesn't reach the consumers. So it feels like it's also solving problems that we as consumers might not have been aware of. And it's not just a nice to have or an enhancement. It also comes, as I mentioned, as a solution to problems that exist in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think it's an interesting one for everyone in the industry to listen to. And that they haven't acted upon this, be it them or their key stakeholder that do look after that. I think it's the typical thing that you'd rather be a first mover than one of the late ones to do it.
Absolutely. And timing is kind of stretched, right? Because what did Kerry say? Horizon 2027?
Correct.
That's just a couple of years from next week.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So, as Kerry said, feel free to get in touch with her. I think these were the main things, Christina. So thanks a lot for summing it all up.
Thank you, Daniel, for the great conversation and your interesting position as always.
I just speak my mind. Well, thanks to everyone for listening in, and we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG Guys.